We are coming to you with new and urgent developments out of Israel. Iran has opened a new front, and the target is a city deep inside Israeli territory that carries a strategic significance that most international audiences have not yet grasped. BEIT Shemesh is under attack, right now, as we speak. Videos are moving across every platform. Footage from residents, from streets, from rooftops in and around BEIT Shemesh showing projectiles descending through the night sky, explosions, fires, and then something that defense analysts watching this footage are describing as one of the most significant single data points of this entire conflict. The lights went out. Israel has officially confirmed what those videos already showed. Following the impact of an Iranian missile in the BEIT Shemesh area, a power outage has been reported across the settlement. The grid went down. And that single sentence, power outage confirmed in BEIT Shemesh, tells us something about Iranian targeting that changes the entire analytical picture of what Iran is doing tonight and why. But before we get to what that power outage means, we need to address what the footage is also showing us. BEIT Patriot batteries are not stopping them. Israel's Iron Dome is not stopping them. The most sophisticated layered air defense architecture in the Middle East, supplemented tonight by active American Patriot missile defense systems, is watching Iranian missiles fly through its coverage envelope and reach their targets. This is not a marginal failure. This is a structural one. And understanding why requires understanding something about the nature of the threat that Iran is now deploying in this phase of the conflict. Let us establish what BEIT Shemesh is and why it matters. BEIT Shemesh is located approximately 30 kilometers west of Jerusalem. It sits in the Judean foothills, in the corridor between Israel's coastal plain and its capital. It is not a port city. It is not a beachfront metropolitan center. It is inland. It is elevated. It is a city of approximately 140,000 people, a growing, predominantly residential community with significant infrastructure connecting it to both Jerusalem and Tel Aviv. And tonight, it is the target of Iranian missiles that the Patriot system and Iron Dome combined could not intercept. The significance of that geographic selection cannot be overstated. When Iran struck Tel Aviv, the message was about economic and psychological impact. Tel Aviv is Israel's commercial heart. It is the country's financial center, its technology hub, its cultural capital. Striking Tel Aviv was a statement about reach and about the willingness to hit what Israel values most at the civilian level. Striking BEIT Shemesh is a different kind of message entirely. BEIT Shemesh is inland. Getting a missile to BEIT Shemesh, getting it over Israel's coastline, past its forward defense perimeters, through the coverage zones of both Iron Dome batteries and Patriot systems, and delivering it into the Judean corridor, demonstrates a penetration capability that is geographically deeper than anything we have seen in this conflict until tonight. If Iran can hit BEIT Shemesh, the question that every Israeli defense planner is asking right now is the question they did not want to have to ask. What else can Iran hit, and where? The answer to that question, if Iran's demonstrated range and penetration capability tonight are taken seriously, is deeply uncomfortable. Now let us talk about why the Patriot system failed, because this is the detail that American officials are going to find most politically and strategically difficult to process. The Patriot missile defense system is the flagship ground-based air defense platform of the United States military. It has been deployed across American allied nations from Europe to the Gulf. It is the system that Saudi Arabia has used to defend against Houthi ballistic missile attacks. It is the system that Ukraine has deployed against Russian missile strikes. It is, by most measures, the most battle-tested Western surface-to-air missile platform in the world. And tonight in Israel, it is watching Iranian missiles fly past it. The Patriot system was designed to intercept ballistic missiles, missiles that follow a calculable trajectory, that climb to altitude and descend in a predictable arc, that give the defense system enough time to compute an intercept solution and place a PAC-3 or PAC-2 interceptor in the right location at the right moment. That design logic works well against the threat environment the system was built to defeat. But the Iranian missile systems now being used in this phase of the conflict are not following the threat model the Patriot was optimized for. We have already established in previous coverage what the Fatah hypersonic system does to interception timelines, the speed in the terminal phase, the maneuverability, the capacity to alter trajectory as it descends. What we are seeing in BEIT SHEMESH tonight suggests that Iran has the ability to combine that terminal phase behavior with a flight profile that defeats the geographic positioning of defense batteries. Patriot is not a magic dome. It has coverage envelopes, dead zones, and geometric limitations. A missile that arrives at an angle and a speed that places it outside the optimal engagement window of a Patriot battery can fly past it. Not because the battery failed to function, but because the incoming threat arrived in a way that the system was not positioned to catch. Iran appears to have done its homework on where the batteries are and how to route around them. That is not an accident. That is intelligence. That is planning. That is the product of years of studying American and Israeli air defense deployments, identifying geometric gaps, and designing flight paths that exploit those gaps. Now let us talk about the power outage, because this is the detail that shifts our understanding of Iranian targeting doctrine tonight. Iran is not just firing at population centers in the general sense. The confirmation of a power outage in BEIT SHEMESH following the missile impact is consistent with a targeting approach that goes after critical infrastructure, specifically the electrical grid and the distribution network that connects Israeli cities to their power supply. This matters for several reasons. Electrical infrastructure is one of the most consequential targets in modern warfare, precisely because of what its loss cascades into. Power outages in a city of 140,000 people affect hospitals, communications networks, water pumping systems, emergency response coordination, civilian heating and cooling. They create confusion, disorganization, and fear in ways that a strike on a less connected target does not. A city without power in the middle of a conflict is a city that is suddenly dealing with multiple simultaneous crises that have nothing to do with the missile itself. And if Iran is targeting the electrical grid in BEIT SHEMESH, the analytical question is whether this is one instance of a broader targeting pattern. Whether Iran is systematically identifying electrical infrastructure nodes across the Israeli interior and prioritizing them in this phase of the campaign. That would represent a significant escalation in strategic ambition. It would mean Iran is not simply trying to demonstrate reach. It is trying to degrade the functional capacity of Israeli society during this conflict, to create conditions on the ground that compound the military and psychological pressure that missile strikes alone produce. Defense analysts who watch state-level conflict closely will recognize this pattern. It is the same logic that has been applied in other modern conflicts, the targeting of power generation and distribution as a force multiplier, as a way of making the effect of every missile strike ripple outward, far beyond the immediate impact zone. Iran appears to be applying that logic to Israel tonight. Let us now address the question of what this means for the Patriot deployment specifically, because there is a political dimension here that Washington cannot ignore. The United States positioned Patriot batteries in Israel as part of the support architecture for this operation. The presence of American air defense systems on Israeli soil was a statement, a signal to Iran and to the region that American capability was augmenting Israeli capability, that the combined air defense picture was formidable enough to make large-scale Iranian retaliation prohibitively costly. That signal is being tested in real time tonight, and the footage from BEIT SHEMESH is not sending the message that the combined American-Israeli air defense posture is impenetrable. It is sending the opposite message. For the American administration, this creates an immediate problem that is both military and political. Militarily, if Patriot batteries are present and Iranian missiles are reaching targets in BEIT SHEMESH, the question of why they are not intercepting those missiles will need to be answered, both for the immediate tactical picture and for the longer-term credibility of American air defense exports and alliances. Politically, the imagery of an Israeli city without power following an Iranian missile strike, while American Patriot batteries are deployed on Israeli soil, will generate questions that are very hard to deflect. Questions about whether the American air defense contribution is meaningful. Questions about whether the assumptions underlying this entire operation were as sound as they were presented to Congress, to the American public, and to allies who were told this could be managed. And there is a further dimension to this that we have not yet addressed tonight. BEIT SHEMESH is approximately 30 kilometers from Jerusalem. If Iran can reach BEIT SHEMESH, if it can put missiles into the Judean corridor with the precision that the power outage report implies, then the analytical distance between what Iran demonstrated tonight and what it could potentially threaten next is not large. Jerusalem is the political capital of Israel, the most symbolically sensitive city in the region, and a city that sits in the geographic envelope that tonight's strikes have now established is not beyond Iranian reach. We are not saying Jerusalem is the next target. We are saying that the strategic geometry has changed tonight, and every government in the region and beyond is right now recalculating what that change means. The Gulf states watching this conflict from across the waters are processing two things simultaneously. First, that Iranian missile capability is exceeding what the dominant Western analytical consensus had projected. Second, that the American-Israeli air defense architecture, the architecture they rely on for their own security calculations, has gaps that Iran has now located and is demonstrating the ability to exploit. That recalculation will have consequences for regional alignment and for how those governments communicate privately with Washington in the coming hours. Israel's response to tonight's strikes will be severe. There is no version of this in which the Israeli government does not respond to missiles reaching BEIT SHEMESH with significant military action. The political pressure inside Israel is absolute. The public is watching fires in cities, power outages in the interior, and missile defense systems that are failing to stop what Iran is sending. That is not a situation any Israeli government can absorb without a dramatic demonstration of counterforce. But the escalation dynamic from this point forward carries risks that were not present at the beginning of this conflict. Iran has now demonstrated, across multiple strikes in multiple locations, that it has the ability to reach Israeli cities despite the layered defense architecture arrayed against it. Every Israeli escalation decision from this point forward has to be made against the background knowledge that Iran can hit back, not with symbolic strikes on peripheral targets, but with missiles that reach BEIT SHEMESH, that knock out power grids, that put footage on international screens that nobody in Washington or Tel Aviv wanted the world to see. That is not the conflict that was announced. That is not the conflict that was planned for. That is not the conflict that the comfortable assumptions in Western capitals had priced into their calculations. Tonight, BEIT SHEMESH does not have power. The Iron Dome could not stop what came for it. The Patriot batteries could not stop what came for it. And the strategic picture that was supposed to be simple, controlled, and decisively in American and Israeli favor is something more complicated, more dangerous, and more uncertain than it was 24 hours ago. The night is not over. The Iranian military has not indicated it has concluded its operations for this phase. And the questions being asked right now in emergency rooms in BEIT SHEMESH, in operations centers in Tel Aviv, in the Situation Room in Washington, and in capitals across the globe are the same question. What comes next? We are monitoring all incoming footage and reports from the ground. We are tracking every confirmed development from Israeli emergency services, from military sources, and from the international intelligence community. Stay with us. We will bring you every confirmed detail as this situation continues to develop.